Hello and welcome back to another episode of Carlisle Studios. My name is Hal Hunter. I'm a professional tattoo artist from Carlisle Tattoo Co. in Melbourne, Australia. I'm lucky enough to be here at the new Tradition Tattoo in Noosaville in Queensland with Hamish Clarke. Say hello.
Hello.
And Ben Rorke.
Hey, how you doing?
Thank you for having me.
No worries.
Just firstly, this episode is brought to you, like every other episode, by Carlisle Threads at carlislethreads.com and Carlisle Tattoo Co. We're at 178 Carlisle Street in St Kilda in Victoria. So, firstly, how are you guys?
Very good.
Good?
How are you?
I'm good. You've hung around after work to talk to me.
Sure have, yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All day.
Yeah, well, I was actually a bit worried that it wasn't going to happen because you messaged me this morning saying, like, is it not happening?
Yeah.
And then I was like, message you guys back and none of you messaged me. And I was like, fuck, maybe they're just off it.
No, I didn't see. Well, I think there was just a bit of miscommunication, and then he said something to me about speaking to you.
Yeah.
And I messaged you, and I don't know. I just kind of assumed that it would be cool anyway. Like,
We're all here now.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we've made it happen. So, yeah, thank you for coming along. I was actually a bit worried that wasn't going to happen. I told Ben this before. But when Bella and she gives her apologies for not being here. She's looking after Lenny at the moment.
It's all good.
We were in hospital last night till 4 a.m. with Lenny. And I was like, fuck, I don't know if I'm going to be up to doing this podcast tomorrow. But I'm glad. I'm glad we're here.
Whoa.
Yeah, he's fine, by the way, everyone. Lenny.
It's all good.
Yeah, he just had croup. But the Noosa hospital was really good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. If you ever need to take your kids there on holidays. So we'll go around in the circle. Just a little bit of background on like who you are, what you do, how long you've tattooed, all of that.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm Hamish Clarke. I've been tattooing for almost 12 years. So I started 2012. Yeah, mainly do traditional, I guess, but whatever walks in the door. Yeah, that's about it.
Nice. Ben?
I'm Ben Rorke. I've been tattooing for about 20 years, I think. Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to have a pretty interesting career, and I do a bit of different stuff.
Yep.
And I'm always kind of happy to take on anything, but mainly sort of Japanese traditional things like that is what I would want to do most of the time. But tattooing for that long, you kind of it was a bit different when I started out, and you kind of you did whatever came in. It wasn't like it is now where you get to kind of pick and choose. And I've always kind of enjoyed the challenge of different stuff. So yeah, I've always tried to just keep it interesting and do as many different styles as possible, but mainly like traditional and Japanese.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. I guess from my perspective, I've never met either of you, but that's definitely like, I mean, obviously you just see whatever you guys put online, but that's, like traditional Japanese for you, Ben, as well. Is like, the impression is that that's the style you guys do or like you prefer to do. But I think, having talked to a few people, everyone says pretty much the same thing. It's like tattooing foremost, and then ideally the style that you prefer to do is like the goal in the end.
Yeah, definitely. For me, it's, I don't know, like I just feel like a lot of the stuff is, I don't know, sometimes we tend to take the customer out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't think that's necessarily the right way to go about things. I feel like even when people do come in for something that we don't want to do, I've always found that if you kind of, give them the right service, they kind of generally swing around to getting cool tattoos anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
So you might do something that you think is a stinker at first, but then before you know it, you've done a sleeve or a back piece, and it doesn't take long for people to look around and see flash and kind of see what everyone else thinks is cool in this industry, and then they kind of warm to that sort of stuff. You know what I mean?
No, I definitely agree with that. That's something that when we get all the young, I've tattooed for 10 years, so to a lot of people, I'm still like fresh into tattooing, still a young tattooer. But to the guys who are in the shop that are, substantially fresher into tattooing than I am, that's the one thing that I try and push onto them is that, in my opinion, and you guys can disagree with this, but there's a lot of tattooers coming into it these days who think it's the other way around. It's like, I feel like they burn so many opportunities with customers by being too staunch or too pushy with a certain design. And I found, from my perspective, that some of my long-term customers who get like arguably like my favorite tattoos, the first tattoos they got from me were, shit that you would never want to do.
Definitely. Yeah. It's one of those things. It's like, I think we let our egos get involved a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
And, we're still in some kind of service industry, and I think people tend to forget that stuff sometimes. And like, man, some of my best clients are people that have started doing shit tattoos on.
Yeah.
And then they've come around, and sometimes they might even get one or two, and then they just kind of completely change their direction, and they're, a customer for the rest of your life sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So it definitely helps to, try and accommodate everyone.
Yeah.
And it definitely, I reckon it comes back around to you every time, So.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So I guess like for me, I'm interested in, just like getting to know about your careers and your thoughts on a few things. So like, Hamish, we'll start with you. Do you have like I guess like a memory or, you remember when you first started getting interested in tattooing, whether it was about getting a tattoo yourself or, doing it as a job?
Yeah, I guess sort of like high school, like grade 11, grade 12. I suppose with like a lot of people at that time, like hardcore, like being in the hardcore scene, all like people in bands had tattoos and stuff like that. So I guess I was that's what sort of like drew me to tattooing. Being like wanting to be able to get tattoos, and then I was also like really into art. Like that was kind of all I was really good at in high school. Like wasn't really good at much else, to be honest. So I think it was a bit of like putting two and two together.
Yep.
And just being like, all right, cool. I like tattoos. I can draw. I might have a crack at this. And I sort of finished high school, like did grade 12, whatever. And then I was studying graphic design, like just at TAFE.
Yep.
And then I was going to TAFE with a couple of guys that were like, one guy was like a scratcher, I guess you'd say. And like he ended up getting an apprenticeship, and I was like, all right, I'll just kind of like do the same thing and just put together a portfolio and just painted heaps of flash. So I was sort of into traditional at the time, like before I started as well. And I think like the Tattoo Age docu series thing, like they just come out, so they had that one on like Dan Santoro, and I saw that and I was like, yep, sick. Like that's the kind of thing I want to be doing. It's kind of my introduction to it, I suppose.
Nice. And what about you, Ben?
Mine's probably like later on in life, like pretty similar to his. I guess it started from probably like, hardcore bands, playing in bands, having friends in bands, having friends getting tattoos. I've got a couple of friends that I grew up with that tattoo now, but like beforehand, like my probably earliest introduction would be when I was probably 6 or so. Like my auntie was married to a bandit, and he was tattooing up here, and when we first moved from Sydney up here, we were living with them for a few months, and like they were tattooing at the house. So like it's kind of always been around me. Like my stepdad was getting tattoos, like whether it was dudes from the bike club, it was always kind of there, And then as I got older, obviously we kind of separated from them. And then as I got older, playing in bands, doing things like that, I ended up kind of reconnecting with friends of my aunties and my auntie. And like I was like trying to get an apprenticeship. It was real hard back then, 20 years ago. It was like walking into shops now is probably a bit easier than it was then. And so it was real difficult, and I ended up being down in Victoria with my parents, and then ran into some family friends who were tattooers as well, and they kind of took me into their house and like kind of helped me get off the ground a little bit. And then during that time of me being in Adelaide, I was like helping this guy like do work on show cars, and he was kind of like I was like sanding cars, and and then at night time he'd be showing me tattoo stuff and showing me how to make needles and stuff like that. And then during that time, obviously I was from Noosa, so like all my friends and stuff were here, and being down in Adelaide, I didn't really have anyone to tattoo down there. Like it was kind of hard to find clients. And then during that time, like the guy who'd been tattooing me up here, a guy named Carl, he ended up taking over Tattoo Junction. Mm-hmm. And I'd kind of kept in contact with him since I left. And once he took over that, because he'd been tattooing me and he knew me, he kind of like said, come back and I'll give you an apprenticeship. Yep. And it just kind of made sense. Like I spoke to Bob, the guy that I was living with, and he was just like, yeah, just go for it because your friends are there and it's the only way you're going to get momentum, Yeah. So I came back here and started at the Junction, and then that kind of lasted, I don't know, maybe a year. It was just like I remember the first day that I started, I had to do like, this was like my first professional tattoo ever, and it was like 7, black lines like this around a guy's arm, like I'd hate to see that thing now. Like it was just literally like I had an apprenticeship, but it was like you're just tattooing now. Yeah. It was fucking crazy, man. Yeah. And then like,
that was your first day?
Yeah. Like I still, dude, the tattoo would look like like roadkill, man. Like it would be such a mess.
And even that's like, I would put that up as possibly one of the hardest tattoos to do.
Now, even like trying to get the stencil on is hard, you know, for something like that, let alone tattooing it. And it's like, it's pure bullshit that got me through like the tattoo, like just talking this guy up and like keeping his eyes anywhere but looking at the tattoo, Yeah. And then, so I was kind of doing all right there, and then I ended up kind of out at this other shop in Toronto with this other apprentice, and it just got a bit wild, man. Like I just didn't, like in my head what I thought it would be like I thought I would do like an apprenticeship. Yep. And it was just like it was fucking crazy, some of the like stuff that I had to do. Yep. And then like I'm there with this other apprentice, and then like you have a little issues at the shop, and then you just don't even really know how to deal with any of it, so I ended up having a bit of a falling out up here, and then, kind of ended up down in Brisbane. Yeah, nice. So. Yeah, we'll get on to the tradition tattoo in Brisbane, but just, Hamish, did you, your first shop and how you eventually got the apprenticeship and stuff?
So, at the time, so this is like 2012, like Ben said, it was super hard to get into tattooing back then. Like it was pretty, gate kept, I guess you'd call it. So I'd just, with my portfolio, jump on the train, just visit every tattoo shop there was in Brisbane and the Gold Coast, and just trying to find anywhere that would take me. And then got offered, it was sort of like half apprenticeship, half like just, I don't know, like just general upkeep at, what's it called? Valley Mall tattoo. Mm-hmm. I did a day there, and then it was sort of like touch and go for a little bit. Like they were like, "Oh yeah, come in," and then, like last minute they'll be like, "Oh no, don't come in. It's not going to be busy." So I kind of just cut my losses there, and then I just kept looking, and then I went into City Body Art on Elizabeth Street, and then they kind of just gave me the green light and said, come in this Saturday. And kind of started there. I guess kind of similar to Ben, like it took me like maybe like a week or two before I did like my first tattoo. Yep. So like there was only like a couple of people there, but I was sort of initially learning to tattoo by Benny McDowell.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, wow.
That was where he started, and when I'd gotten there, he'd been there for like maybe like 3-4 years, maybe 5 years.
Yep.
So he was like teaching me like everything that he knew, I guess. And yeah, he left. He went to somewhere on the Gold Coast, I think. What's that one in Surfers Paradise? Oh, Skin Effects.
Yeah, okay.
He went there. So there was only like another like 2 tattooers there, and this is like a big shop, and it's like in the middle of the city, so they're paying like God knows how much rent, whatever. So they're like, all right, well, we've got to get the young fella up, get him tattooing real quick. So yeah, I think I did. Yeah, it was like first week or 2 into my apprenticeship, I started tattooing, and it was just like a little palm-sized moth. It's probably still healing. Like I'd shoot it up. Yeah, like that took like 4 hours, and it's like the size of your palm kind of thing. And then I kind of just tattooed heaps of my mates, and a lot of them were from the hardcore scene at the time, like just around Brisbane. So that was pretty helpful, like having that sort of scene there. And I think it was just like all those kids were kind of just like, oh, whoever's the apprentice, like they just get tattooed by them, and they ended had like their thighs would just be, their legs would be covered in like the shittest tats. And I guess that was sort of my apprenticeship. That was, I wouldn't say it was like a super traditional apprenticeship. Like they didn't really, I guess it was a lot of trial and error.
Yep.
Like the guy James Thompson, he was sort of like the senior artist there. He'd only been tattooing for like a few years as well, and he was more of like sort of black and grey guy. So he could only sort of teach me what as far as what he knew. With like he does black and grey. I'm sort of trying to do traditional stuff. So it was just a lot of trial and error. And it was fun. Also owned by bikies. I think at that time, like pretty much 90% of the shops in Brisbane were probably owned by bikers.
Nice. Yeah, it's interesting. Like I always feel like there's this perception that everyone who's tattooed for like a decent amount of time has done like what everyone would consider like a traditional apprenticeship. But everyone I talk to, it's predominantly just like they get into a shop somehow, and then it's more like trial and error,
Yeah. Well, my situation, like, because I had an apprenticeship up here, but there was not one bit of apprenticeship about it.
Yeah.
Like it was just like like even to getting paid, like I was getting paid 50% straight up.
Yeah.
Like first day tattooing in a shop, it was just like, what the fuck's going on? But then because I like I don't know, like I guess I was kind of cut from a bit of a different cloth to Carl, and I felt a bit of a responsibility.
Yep.
To what I was doing, And I think all of us, like as young tattooers, it's like how many fucking nights have we sat there just like with the hot flush, just wondering what the fuck we just did to something.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So at all costs, I would try and avoid that feeling wherever I could, and then then I ended up in a fight with him, and he kind of let me go, and then I went to Brisbane. I'd been kind of saving money and planning to move down there anyway, just because it just really wasn't like, I had no one to teach me what I wanted to learn.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you can look at a tattoo and look at someone who's your mentor, their tattoos, and it's pretty easy to distinguish that, they don't really have much to show you.
Yep.
And back then it was really that, I think, like so many people had been through that trial and error apprenticeship. By the time they got to being qualified, they really didn't know what the fuck they were doing. They could do a tattoo, it would heal good.
Yep.
But there was no real technical ability or explanation there. It was a bit kind of like voodoo or something. Like people, you could ask people how to do things and they would tell you, but it wouldn't really make sense.
Yeah.
And it did just become trial and error. And then when I got an apprenticeship with Rick at where he started at Valley Mall too. And I had a great experience there. Like I, straight away went back to no tattooing. I'd been tattooing for a year already,
Yeah, wow.
straight away back to no tattooing, and then like I had to make needles for everyone in the shop. I had to draw Rick's tattoos. I had to do all sorts of shit, dude. It was like a proper apprenticeship, you know. And then that went for like 4 years. And as much as it sucked, like at least I felt like I wasn't responsible for something that I had no idea about.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Like it was kind of like I couldn't even talk shit out of a problem because I had no idea what I was talking about, you know? So just to have that like actual kind of training and have a bit of understand, like even just making needles and things like that, like just was just huge to be able to understand the difference between.
Yeah, I wish I got, wish I'd taught that.
Like tapers and, you know, soldering down too far and just different things like that. It really, like I'm like an overthinker and I've got ADHD and stuff like that. So my brain's just process, you know, so I could kind of identify how things were operating and working and kind of started to figure that stuff out for myself because it was hands-on, you know, whereas these days you're just buying a box of needles and you're not really spending because I was making needles for everyone in the shop. So I'd go in on my days off and just like sit there and just make needles.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to try and do the fun stuff when the fun stuff was happening at the shop. Like I didn't want to have to sit there and do that stuff, you know, when people were around. And then, but just having that knowledge just helped me so much to be able to like put what other people were saying into the process. You know what I mean? You could kind of like link it up a little bit and you could start to figure things out yourself. And so as much as it was still an apprenticeship, it was more like I still didn't get much of that like direct knowledge.
Yep.
You know, like I made needles and stuff, but the tattooing part, I think it was like I feel like it took me so fucking long to learn to tattoo.
Yep.
Whereas now some guys these days are just like, it's incredible. Like some of the stuff that you see on Instagram, you're like, who's this person?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, they've been tattooing for 2 years.
Yeah.
It's like mind blowing, you know? So
that's the thing I think anyone listening who doesn't tattoo, it's like they'll never understand like almost like for me, like the anxiety of doing bad tattoos on people.
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember before my wife Bella tattooed and I was like doing my apprenticeship, I was like, you know, fresh into it. I would go home and I'd be like just driving home and you seriously like, you're contemplating like what have you actually done to someone? Whether the customer knows it or not, you know, like...
You don't want to show your face again. Like, I never want to see that person ever again. Yeah. Because, like, I'm traumatized by it.
And I still tattoo some of the people I've done, like, my very first tattoos on. And I've reworked all of them. So, like, they're all, I mean, borderline passable. But it's very humbling, you know, like... And I say to all the young guys at the shop again, it's like, you know... They've all tattooed, like, not all of them, but all the younger guys, we've got one apprentice. Like, the tattoos he's doing now are healing better than the tattoos I'd done after 4 years, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's, like, probably the main difference is because they don't have that trial and error phase for so long that they aren't, like, just destroying people's skin.
And I think it's in our best interest to, like, to make sure that we... Like, I feel like our generation of tattooers has really paid attention to what they're doing a lot more and how, and like it just seems like whatever's happened between that kind of era and now, it's just like people are just picking it up. Like you just never saw it that quick back then.
Yeah.
Like it was just always kind of like, you know, like I remember seeing Rachel's stuff when she started and she seemed to get real good real quick, you know what I mean? But even that, it just seemed like a bit more of a process. Like some days it's just like, you see an apprentice's tattoos and like it's like my 10th tat and I'm just like, fuck off. You know, like it's depressing. You know? Like it makes me feel like I don't know, like what the fuck was I doing?
Yeah.
You know, a bit like that. Because you kind of like, once you know how to do a tattoo, like it's like, you know, it's kind of like parking your car or something.
Yeah.
Like you don't think about it anymore. Well, I don't, you know, I've been tattooing for long enough that like, I don't really think about tattoos when I do them. My body just does it. My mind just, you know.
Probably also has something to do with like who's like you said before, like who's teaching you. Like you look at like Tom from Melbourne Tattoo Co. and like the new apprentice there now.
Yep.
And like they're learning from people like Wizzo and Benny and whoever else is there. And like, you know, obviously they're like a product of their own environment.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you're sort of hanging around shops where, you know, they're not the best artist, or, you know, they don't have like the knowledge to give you to sort of, you know, make the tattoos that you want to make, then that kind of
definitely. Well, their new apprentice at Melbourne Tattoo Co. I follow the shop on Instagram, and they posted a photo of him tattooing and doing this ghost tattoo. I don't know what the cartoon is, I can't remember, and I was like, oh fuck, they got a new guy working there. And then I went on his account, it was like he's like the new apprentice.
Yeah, and he's done like 20, 30. Well, he's posted like 20, 30 tattoos. You can see like the first ones that he's done, and like they're like what I was doing, you know, 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm just like, whoa, like.
Yeah, I just think that like that's where you see that like the collection of tattooers around them are invested in making sure that they succeed.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's like I do it with even like Hunter and people like that. If I see him doing something weird, I'll tell him.
Yep.
And it's not out of just trying to be the old head and be the asshole. I always explain to him why.
Yeah.
And because it's like I banged my head down that road for a fucking year and a half until I figured out why that was fucked.
Yeah.
You know, and I can fix it for him like that.
Yeah.
You know, and so, and I do all the time. Like if he's ever got questions with anything, like I want to help him, because it's just like I know how many sleepless nights you would have at home, like wondering what the fuck did I do, what changed. You know, even from like you'd go home, you'd do one tattoo one day, and you'd be on the biggest high, and then all of a sudden you're going home the next day wanting to quit.
Yep.
You know, so to try and get rid of that stuff, I think it's a bit of a priority for people, especially in good shops. Like they want, I think, you know, that it's turned from being like, you know, the priority is to make dollars, whereas now it's gone, you know, those good shops, it's like they, you know, I remember from being a shop owner, like it was always the tattoos came first, you know, and the rest kind of just fell behind it. And like it's good to see, but it's still depressing to think how much time you waste.
Yeah.
You know?
But I guess that's the progression of the industry, you know, like and just even I remember when I started, it was like I don't know if you guys know, but like I started at Vintique, which is in like suburban southeast Melbourne, and it was just Bobby Skins and Scott Moss there, and we all had like idolized, you know, like the Smith Street style. Again, like Tattoo Age was like massive for me, watching that Dan Santoro episode and stuff. And yeah, it was just like trial and error, new needles, new tubes, you know, different machines, like how to get that same outline look, you know, stuff like that. And there'd be days like you do a tattoo and you're like, oh, cool, you know, that's sort of going down the path of how I want it to come out. And the next day I'm doing outlines with like literally no ink flow, and I just like cook the whole tat, you know. And it took us like so long. But now everyone, you know, like you go into a shop and you can see exactly what people are using, and I think people are willing to pass it on. Yeah. Because of one, you know, and two, it's like you know what they're going through, and you don't want them to go through what you did.
Yeah, and for me, like one of the things was like you wanted to do the good tattoos back then, and I could see what made a tattoo good, but I couldn't go to my boss and be like, you know, my boss is Rick Nash, and he just was like a tattooer, you know, tattooing in the Valley since 14. He would kind of do anything, but if I wanted to do some like geometric dot work, and I went to him and said, "How do you do that?" He'd just be like, tattoo it. I don't know. Like, and you know, when you're trying to do something good and you want to be shown, like you'd really have to just dig through magazines. It was before websites, and you know, so you were looking for like mentors to teach you the right way to go about things, but then having to go and find the images and kind of deconstruct it and try and figure it out yourself. You know what I mean? So I guess there's so much of that doesn't have to happen anymore. Like there's so many people so good at tattooing now. Like it's kind of scary. Like, and you just, like, I remember walking around Iron Gate and just being like, who's that? And it's just like this hectic shit everywhere, you know?
Yeah.
And it's so rare to not, like, when I was younger, like, you just knew everyone. If someone started tattooing, you're like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you kind of knew it. And now I'm seeing people that are like, got these wild careers and hundreds of thousands of followers, and I've never even heard of them before. And so it's just, it's kind of like just come so far ahead, you know?
Yeah, definitely. You both sort of touched on it, but I sort of want to know like your main style influences or like tattooers or even outside of tattooing, like artists that, like inspire you or you sort of, I guess motivate you to do the style that you ultimately do.
I guess, Smith Street would probably have to be the biggest one. I think it's pretty obvious if you've seen my work. But yeah, and then also like a lot of like old tattooers like Tony Polito, Johnny Dollar, Paul Rogers, like we're all sort of taking what they did and modernizing it. I guess those are probably the biggest ones. I don't really have like too much influence sort of outside tattooing. I guess I guess what I'm doing is pretty much very tattoo related.
Yep. Nice. Ben?
Yeah, similar to Hamish. Obviously with doing a bit broader stuff, it's kind of like I'm influenced by so many people.
Yeah.
You know, like just the way my head works, like I'm very anyone that knows me knows that I'm like a bit of a lunatic and kind of like it shows through my work sometimes, just the difference and stuff. And like half the time, like I've just got this stuff inside me that I kind of need to get out. It's kind of hard to explain, you know what I mean? But it's like if I just do one thing for too long, like I can't. Like I need to. I've got all different avenues of things that I'm doing, whether it be like, you know, painting, shop stuff, tattoos, like I do 3D design stuff like machines.
Yep.
Like I had a workshop that used to be set up. It's not currently set up, but like I'm always kind of doing a bit of everything, you know? And I found like I was probably a lot more influenced back in the day, but I think like the Instagram and social media thing, it's kind of killed that stuff for me a bit because I think it's kind of like it's taken the punch out of stuff a little bit. Like we're so like we see so many great tattoos all the time.
Yeah,
it's hard to see a good one.
Yeah,
because they're also fucking good, but it's taken like a bit of the magic out of it, you know, because we see so many great tattoos. It's kind of like, oh, cool, there's just another epic tat. And you just scroll. You don't even like them anymore, man.
Yeah.
Like, because it's like it's just everywhere. So I just try to, like, I've got a huge library, you know, so I try and like use that kind of stuff for a reference. Like I probably own, I don't know, 300 or 400 books, you know, that I've collected throughout my career. And, you know, whether it be tattooing books or animal books or whatever, like I just kind of like, I don't know, these days, and it's forgiving with traditional and stuff, but I like to be able to find reference that people can't.
Yep.
You know, like whether it's finding a skull on a little kimono print or something like that, you know, like it's not just the ones that everyone has, you know. So, and just being tattooing for so long, I guess you just kind of find your own way, and you kind of get a bit older and start doing things that interest you a little more, you know? Yeah.
Nice. And we touched on it earlier, like you both mentioned tradition in Brisbane. So do you want to go into that a little bit? Because that'll lead on to, I guess, where we are now. So yeah, you were up here in Noosa. You went down to Brizzy.
I was up here, and then I worked for Rick for, I think it was about 5 years, and then he was actually gonna. I was really close with him and his wife, and he was actually going to buy a building in the valley and lease it to me for me to start a shop there. This was like probably 5 years after starting work with him. And I was kind of all for it, you know, just being young and I guess impressionable. And, you know, we went to a couple of auctions and things, and they got passed in, and then I remember one night we were kind of looking at remortgaging our apartment to like get a bit of money to renovate the shop and stuff, and I was just like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, I've been tattooing for 5 or 6 years, and like I'm committing to this. And I think it was more so, like, it was more for Rick than it was for me to stop other people from moving into the valley, you know. And I kind of sat down with him and had a bit of a heart to heart and said, look, like, I appreciate it, but I'm going to apply for a job at Westside, because that to me at the time was like, you know, one of the meccas of tattooing in Australia. There was so many good people that had worked there, and it was really somewhere that I'd strive to like try to get a job there.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to Rick, like, I'm going to apply for a job, and if it doesn't pan out, I'll stay with him and do that thing.
Yep.
And yeah, I applied for the job and got it, and then worked there for 6 years. Stuff got wild, and then I opened a shop, and I just kind of thought, like, you know, over the time that I worked at Westside, things kind of changed.
Yep.
A lot of stuff happened. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I had some of the best years of my life tattooing in that studio, and it's opened so many doors for me. Some of my best friends are from there, and then... So I left there after some stuff happened, and just kind of thought that like Brisbane was lacking something, you know, like it was kind of, some of the old shops were a bit tired, and I just felt like, you know, Melbourne just had so much going on and stuff like that. And so I just kind of thought, fuck it, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
And I think like the guys at Westside thought that I was doing a private studio, but I'd rented like 165 square metre building in the valley.
Yeah.
You know, so I was just kind of putting my balls in the breeze and going for it.
Yeah.
And yeah, we obviously, like, it was really successful.
Yep.
It was a great shop, and like I got so many fond memories there.
Yeah. Is that the first time you guys sort of crossed paths?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Actually, no, I think I saw you one time in Melbourne, like my first convention in like 2015 or something, just at the airport. And I was like, I'm pretty sure it's Ben Rorke. But I don't know, probably never told you.
Do you remember
about
that interaction?
No,
Yeah,
you wouldn't. You probably wouldn't have even known who I was.
No, like, obviously I probably would have known, like, it was so different back then that you knew, like, as soon as someone was the apprentice, man, you were just like, oh, who's this, you know? So I definitely knew, and I saw photos of people who were getting tattoos from you and stuff like that. But yeah, the first time I met him was, it would have been when he came for the interview at the shop.
Yep.
And
Yeah. Because I think from my memory, that was like my first memories of coming across you was in Tattoos Down Under.
yeah,
There was like a
ages ago.
interview piece,
Yeah.
and we that's not even going to go into it, but we had this like family fishing shack that it was literally just like a roof and a concrete slab. And I used to buy the Tattoos Down Under magazines, and we were there. And that was the one with you in it. I reckon I read it like 20 times because it was the only thing. There was like, didn't have phones and shit then.
Yeah.
And then I guess Instagram became a thing, and it was like but it wasn't like it is now, you know, like people fucking barely put anything on there.
Yeah.
And then when you opened Tradition, I think that was the first time like I really came across you, Hamish. And yeah, from our perspective, well, everyone I've spoken to, that was like, it was like one of, if not like the most prominent traditional shops in Australia.
Yeah, and like for me at the time, like it was my first business, and I spent so much money on that place, and you didn't ever go there, but it was like a really,
I've driven past it actually.
Yeah, it was like a beautiful shop, and I put so much pride into it, and I don't know, I feel like it probably, like COVID didn't help, and we were killing it, like everything was going so good, and then obviously COVID just destroyed so much, and it built in excuses for people to not show up, and then you know, then people that work for you have got families, no one's been on holidays, and it was just real hard for me to kind of, like, it felt like I just had to keep starting again.
Yeah.
You know, and we kind of got momentum, and then we got to a point where, like, I don't know, like it felt like everyone loved the shop way more than I did.
Yeah.
You know, because I'd like been through so much heartache with it. Like whether it was like, you know, like I decided to renovate by myself during COVID, and you know, I used a whole bunch of our savings and ended up like getting a trapped nerve and then having to have surgery, and like it just kind of like this cycle of events happened that kind of made me not too stoked on it. You know what I mean? And it's real hard for like to walk away from it, and a lot of people kind of don't understand it, but it just like, if you don't like something or you get to that point, it becomes really easy, you know, and other things that I had going on in my life and circumstances that I didn't see coming obviously led to that, that closing. But yeah, it is really nice for me to hear like people now, how they talk about it, you know, and like when I put the post up about doing something again and all the messages I got from everyone, and like it's really nice to still realize that like it kind of made a little bit of an impact. You know what I mean? Like
I definitely did.
Yeah, so that stuff's nice to hear for me. Like during the time, you know, you hope that you're doing the right thing, but you really just, you know, flying by the seat of your pants and hoping. But man, like when I think back at it, like just the people that came and worked there and some of the flash days we had, and like I feel really fortunate to have done it and still been able to walk away, and then now to potentially be doing it again. You know, it feels kind of right, you know, like I didn't think that it would happen, but here I am, you know.
So awesome.
Exciting.
Yeah. And what about you, Hamish? So you were obviously there for the whole duration?
Pretty much, yeah. I think I started maybe like a few weeks after you guys first opened.
Yeah, I think it was like John and Scott.
Yeah.
Shannon. Scott was there with me the first day, and I think then John, he'd started at Westside with me. But he just kind of walked into it when it was a bit of a wild joint. And he kind of had a falling out with some people there, and then, you know, within the second day of opening, he was coming to work for me because he was just like, I can't do this, you know. And then I think it was you next.
Yeah,
and then
like around May or something, 2000.
Yeah, and we opened in March, and then I think Damon after that. It just got, dude. It just, you know, like it was such a big space, and like I was so hands on with building it and stuff, and like just to think about it now and think like, what the fuck was I? Like it was crazy to think like that I just got this massive shop, you know. Like it was so big, and people would come in and just be like, fucking hell, and like, and like it just kind of worked out. You know, even to the point like when I left, like it's just like, you know, Brendan, who took over Westside, took it over, and like I had a great relationship with my landlord, and I got all my bond back, and like, did I still owe like 300 grand on that lease? You know?
Wow.
Like it was still like, it was like 280 grand left on the lease, and he just was like, yeah, you can, it's all good. And you know, it's things like that made me kind of realize that like that was meant to happen. You know, because if it wasn't, like it was just kind of so easy for us to get out of it. And then to be here, and now it feels like that again. You know?
That's awesome.
So,
So when you guys, when you closed that, Ben, what happened with your career? Like, well, I know what happened, but tell everyone else.
Okay, so I left, you know, maybe a few months before it closed down. So I was sort of like living in Budrum, which is like, I don't know, just over an hour like north of where the shop was in the valley, so on the Sunshine Coast, and like had a house there. So I was kind of like doing a bit of commuting and stuff like that. And like long term, I just wanted to live up here and work up here. Like ideally, I would love to have like moved the shop up here, and you know it's kind of happened. Like that's pretty sick. So yeah, and I was like, it was pretty hard to do. I sort of lost a lot of sleep over it, and but I was like, I just wanted to make a lifestyle change. So I let Ben know that I was leaving, and which was pretty hard. I think probably for both of us because we'd been working.
Yeah, like we work beside each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So we'll obviously we still are real tight. So and it kind of just it sort of worked out pretty well. Like coming up here, Mitch just like hit me up and was like, hey, like, you know, we've got a spare spot here, and I was like, yeah, cool. And then moved from Budrum to Pigeon Springs, which is like 15 minutes away from here. That like it kind of worked out real well, and I was pretty sad to hear like a couple of months after I moved up here that Tradition was closing down. But then I guess it kind of just opened up doors for Ben to move up here.
And it was
worked
kind of
out
like,
well.
you know, a big, like we had really good staff retention.
Yep.
Like, you know, we had like the same crew the whole time, you know, and that's like, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So for me, like, man, I really lucked out. Like, I'm not naive, and I realized like the caliber of the tattooers that I had, you know, and I'm not silly.
Yep.
And like, so for me, you know, obviously like it's that whole 7-year itch thing, you know, like it kind of felt like during COVID, and like we'd all kind of been through a lot of stuff, and then I worked in a room with Hamish and Hayden, and Hayden had decided to do something by himself, and Hamish was already commuting back and forth a bit, so I kind of knew that was on the cards.
Yeah.
You know, and then they kind of Haydo finished up as well, so then I was like in this back room by myself, and like I'd kind of become like super tight with those two, and we kind of had our own little. It was kind of like, in a way, I think it's partly the downfall of the shop a little bit as well, is the fact that like I was going through a bit of stuff in my own life, so just to be able to come into the back room and duck into the little sanctuary and just talk to Haydo and Hamish and like it just kind of seemed like the whole front of house of the shop was like a bit of a different vibe, and I hadn't worked out there for a couple of years, and like when those two left, like it wasn't just them two, but like Casey Cantillon, the guy that I'm really close with, like who did the laser, and then obviously Jimmy, who did the laser, was like, he's like a childhood friend of mine. You know what I mean? Like we played in bands together, and so he was with us for 6 years as well. So there was like kind of like a big shift in the shop, and I was like I had it so good, man. Like I literally had everyone that was the best at their thing in the town. So then to think about like how far back I felt like I had to go, like I wanted the shop to keep like growing, you know? And I just felt like I was just going to take a big stumble. And then with the stuff happening in my personal life, it just kind of made, like I was tired, man. Like I was like, it was so hectic getting through the pandemic, and like being a first-time business owner, there's so much stuff. Like, you know, I put a post up on Instagram kind of telling people to pull their heads in and stuff, and, you know, be better to their bosses. And I mean that shit, because it's like, you just don't understand like what they take on. And like, even for me, like I felt like such a piece of shit after I like started running a business, like just for how like ignorant I was to my old bosses. You know, and that was one of the biggest things that hit me. And like then the stuff that I did for my staff, like I was really kind of like trying to make it a family, and I helped everyone. You just take on so much shit that you don't need to, you know. You're up worrying about people all night, can't sleep, you know. And it just got to the end where I was just burnt out, and then I had stuff in my personal life. So to get away from it, it was really good at the time, and I honestly thought I'd never have another shop again. Like, like I was cooked, like, and then I don't know, like as soon as I kind of got free of it and had a bit of time, like I've been through a divorce, and now to be here, and like I kind of miss it a bit. And it's kind of a bit of a natural fit, just because it's hard for me to go somewhere and not be like the most kind of senior tattooer. And like I'm always helping people with stuff anyway, so it kind of like I don't get away from it in a way. So it just kind of felt like, and then obviously Mitch's situation, and I still got all my licenses and everything, so it was just kind of like made sense.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was yeah, I mean, just like really good timing, obviously for me and coming up here and that. But it was yeah, Hamish, we've been messaging a bit about surfing and stuff like that, and yeah, then I was looking on Insta and I saw like obviously the whole thing with Mitch and White Tiger closing and that. And then, yeah, you put up the tradition thing and Bella was like, fuck, like, like, not that we know what's going on, but it was just like fuck, that was just like surprising, you know? Like,
yeah, dude, like even for me, like it was like, it wasn't planned at all, you know, like, and it, like I'm still friends with Mitch and I've been, you know, he's got stuff going on and I've just tried to be there for him and then like just, it's just, he's just in the same position I was in, you know, and I understand exactly where he's at. So it's kind of been, I think it's been helpful for him too.
Yeah.
You know, to help, to see, like I literally went through it a year ago and then to see that it's kind of like, you know, like it's just sometimes shit happens, you know, and sometimes you need to just tap out for a minute, you know.
Definitely.
Yeah, like I found for me, like it was just to not have to think about anyone else was good for me. Hey.
Definitely. I also think tattooing is one of those jobs, like if you love it, it's the greatest job in the world. But if you've got other stuff that's like taking up your mental space, I think it can be really hard to, you know, to stay on top of it all. And that's why I sometimes think you do see guys get to a certain age or certain stuff happens in their lives and they just go, fuck, I just need to like step away and, you know, just get a normal paycheck or something like that.
Yeah, it does. Like it affects your tattooing. Yeah, it does. You know, so.
Even like you know, Benny McDowell stepped away from tattooing for you know, it was 6 months or 12 months or something,
like
and
yeah,
I remember talking to him about that, and like that was really surprising. But he's obviously found his way back to it, and like I think like doing better than ever.
Yeah, his tattoos are great.
Yeah.
Actually, he's another really big influence on me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
I would say him the same. I remember getting tanned by him when he was at Voodoo in St Kilda.
Yep.
He did this skull. And whenever I show people, they're like, oh, Benny did that, because it's a bit like, it's obviously really different to what he does now. But Benny dominates.
Yeah.
If he listens, I don't know if he does. But
because he's like, he helped like John as well.
Yeah,
FTW, and like John's got a huge front tattoo from him. You would never know he did.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, his stuff back then, he was doing like all-seeing eyes, and there was heaps of that. I think every tattoo he did had an all-seeing eye in it. It was way different. Yeah.
No, that's sick. Yeah, he's done some on the back of my leg, big horse, and some stuff on my front as well. No, awesome. So I guess like, like not that you have to have any stuff, but is there any, you know, goals, plans that you got coming up, travel, anything that you sort of want to do, or?
I don't know. Every year I kind of keep telling myself I need to sort of get out and do some guest spots.
Yeah.
I am going to the Gold Coast on Sunday, working at Alfred Street there.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Which should be pretty fun. I get to catch up with Scott. I haven't seen him for, I don't know, a while.
Yep.
Maybe a few years. But yeah, I don't really have like sort of too many plans. I'm kind of just really excited to see what happens here.
Yep.
And stick around and just kind of keep tattooing, and that's kind of it.
Nice.
Hey? Yeah.
You've obviously got the shop band, but anything else?
Maybe more travel would be good. I feel like since COVID happened, like seems to have like thrown everyone for a bit of a loop.
Yeah.
You know?
COVID, like I think regardless of what position you're in, I think it was like pretty hard. Whether people admit it or aware of it, I think like
and I still think we're all dealing with it with even subconsciously or whatever.
Yeah.
But like just like, you know, doing the trips that I do every year to America, like I miss doing that stuff.
Yeah.
Even to do like New Plymouth and just some more, like I did Iron Gate last year, and like just to go down to that, it was like, you know, one of the things when you're going through stuff as like a shop owner and even personal mental health issues is that like you're just kind of grinding and doing the job, and when you kind of find your way back to it, like you still have the passion for it, you know. So going down to Irongate and seeing all my friends and seeing, like, just seeing people, it kind of gets you in. Like, it's anyone that knows that does this job is like it becomes your life, you know.
Yeah.
So when you don't like it, it really sucks.
Yeah.
You know, so to be able to get back out and like travel and do some trips and stuff would be good. And then obviously get this place hopefully pumping again. And yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll just see if I had any more questions. I definitely do. Oh, this is one. Well, I'll ask you, Hamish, because you messaged me initially about surfing and that.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a rundown. We have like a solid surfing following. They like to hear my updates on my like very, very amateur basic surfing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you want to know? Like,
what are you riding?
Okay.
Where are you surfing mostly?
All right.
We'll start talking now.
yeah, this is when it really opens up. Bella's always like, hell, no one fucking wants to hear this stuff.
All right. All right, sweet. Well, I pretty much ride like mainly logs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was riding a lot of like single fins and like fishes and stuff like that, but since moving up here, being like really close to the points, you kind of just not forced to ride a log, but definitely feel more comfortable riding a log.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got sort of like do you know the brand Gato Heroi?
Yes.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of those. Like I've got the Playboy model and then the Dagger. And then I got like a Keo TPV, which are all kind of like, sort of like 60s, like mid to late 60s inspired, like Australian sort of shapes, like super like sort of foiled out rails and like rolled bottom, like V in the tail. So like pretty, like you sort of stand on one for the first time and you're just like, what the fuck? Like it's kind of weird, but yeah, they're super fun. And then I kind of just ride like a couple of hulls. And kind of just like heaps of alternative stuff. Yeah. I suppose. Not so much like, I've probably only ever owned like one thruster.
Yeah, okay.
Not like super heavy into that stuff, but I guess it has its place.
Yeah, nice.
Where do you surf?
Where do I surf?
Yeah.
So me and Bella, we live on the Mornington Peninsula in Rye. Hour and a half thereabouts south of Melbourne. So we like, as the crow flies, we're probably in like 30, 40 Ks from like some of the best waves in Vic.
Yeah.
But the peninsula gets like skunked on fucking waves. Like we pick up way too much swell. It's essentially one fucking beach. There's a few reef breaks. So like, it's pretty
cold as fuck.
It's cold, man.
Yeah.
But the cold kills me. As in like, there's good elements to it because no one, like, you get fuck all crowd. Whereas up here, it's like, you know, is this the coldest it gets?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas like, there'll be like months. I usually surf maybe like twice a week. There'll be months during winter and that where it's like just me and my mate. Like you never get anyone else.
Yeah.
You know, like you get the waves to yourself, but you know, like even the beaches up here, we surfed. Me and my brother surfed Sunshine Beachy yesterday. I surfed twice yesterday. It was like 2 foot, like not even the best, not great banks or whatever, but it was like so user friendly compared to what we have, you know. And I was like, this is fun.
Yeah. You go out even when it's crap.
That's
sort of
it.
thing, yeah.
Way more of a mission down our way. The Surf Coast, which is like Bells and Winky and that, is literally like just on the other side of the bay, but you got to get the ferry. It takes an hour.
Yeah.
So like, a bit of a mission to do that.
What do you normally ride down like near you, like where you're from?
I've been riding like predominantly like the Christensen Wolverine.
Oh, yeah.
6'4". It's a 20. I actually bought it in Byron when we were there earlier this year.
Yeah.
Like it's probably my favorite board to ride, whether the waves are like, you know, whether it performs the best in those waves, like who knows? Like it's seriously like we get like our most common wave that we surf is this Tiber Street. It's like a real slab.
Yep.
So you get heaps of guys ride like short boards because they get like under it. But I always find it's like I ride the 6'4". It's a bit bigger. Like get into them earlier. So I've been riding that heaps. I bought a pool board when I was up here. I went to the like, you know, have you heard of Urban Surf?
Oh yeah.
Like the mechanical wave.
Oh, yeah.
So that's like ages because it's right near the airport. It's like 2 hours from my house. So I never go. But I went we stayed in Melbourne the night before we flew up here, and I was like, fuck it, like I'm close, I may as well go do a session. So I booked the 8 p.m. session with a customer of mine who I tattoo. He lives out there.
Yeah.
And it was literally just us two had the whole session, the whole pool. Like it was pretty surreal.
How does that one work? That wave pool? Is it like?
Not like a big. Is it like a big arm, like Kelly's pool, or
No,
or
it's
is it
not
one of those
like that.
plunger ones that does?
Nah, I don't
There's
actually
so
know.
many different types around now.
It's not the plunger one,
yeah?
but it's not like Kelly's one.
Yeah, right.
So I don't actually know how it works. And it's like it's got a really good shape, the wave.
How big is it?
It probably gets to like 3 foot. But
enough.
it's got like, if you surf in the ocean regularly, it's got like fuck all push behind it because it's obviously generated over like 5 meters.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Oh, okay, yep.
So all the guys who surf there regular, they have like pool specific boards, like epoxy construction.
Yeah, is it salt water?
Nah, it's fresh water. So it's like
it
you're way
doesn't-
less buoyant.
Yeah. I was thinking
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So it's like it is like takes you like maybe, half the session if you haven't surfed there in 6 months to get used to it.
Yeah.
But I'll show you after this because it all gets filmed and shit like that.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's a fucking like it's a pretty wild setup. And I always think like because I grew up in Melbourne, in the north, I was like if I had that as a kid, that would be like my dream. Got a
Yeah,
full
yeah,
restaurant there, like skate area,
And the waves
grass.
like good. Like
Yeah, like
Like
well, I think if you're learning to surf or want to actually like practice certain things, it's like it's 1,000 times better than driving down to the beach.
fighting.
Do you even know like are you going to get a wave?
yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
It's like 5 foot
Yeah.
onshore.
Yeah.
That's it. Or like yeah.
And they have like
currents.
different
There's all
like
different
settings.
settings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? Like how far can they go with the settings? Like
So they got like they can push it way further than they do in the sessions. But it's like beginner, cruiser, intermediate, advanced, and expert. And advanced has 2 options. You can do advanced, which is half turns waves, half barrel, and then advanced turns, which is all turns. So they have like different settings that they change it.
it's crazy. Hey?
They've got like an air setting, but you can only do it in like a private session because there's like, I don't know, the way they run it apparently is
So
like,
it just keeps giving you sections.
yeah, they only do 1 wave per set.
Yep.
So whereas I think it's like 10 or 12 waves per set in the normal sessions.
Yeah.
But yeah,
okay.
in 1 hour, it's like I got 26 waves, So like if you wanted
That's
to like,
alright.
yeah, that's why I think that's like, it's no substitute for the ocean, which is what people wanted it to be initially. But yeah, it's like if you actually want to like progress in surfing, like,
Yeah, 26 waves an hour. That's
yeah, and it all
Pretty
gets
good.
filmed. You can send it off to like coaches who'll like review it and send you back info or whatever. So
It seems like because obviously I grew up surfing too and around
Yeah.
Coaster and stuff, and I've sent him like videos. Like I'm always sending him waves and barrels and all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff, and like even just the progression in like seeing Kelly's pool, it started looking
Yeah.
like it was a swamp, and now it's like getting better and better. It seems like the water's cleaned right up,
Yeah.
and like it just like it's going to be crazy to think what it's like in like 5-10 years.
Yeah. Well, they're already saying it's like all these young kids who grow up in like even like Waco, Texas. It's like not even near the ocean. They can all just bust like huge airs and like technically so progressed.
Yeah.
Whether that like translates initially to the ocean, it's like it probably doesn't. Like I tattoo guys who live in Tullamarine near the airport and they learnt to surf there. And they can do like full turns, like small airs, stuff like that. They struggle in the ocean because they don't actually know what's going on.
Yeah.
yeah.
But I think learning to surf in the ocean is like, it's probably as an adult would be like probably one of the hardest things you could try and do.
Yeah.
You just nearly die paddling out.
Well, that's it. There's so many factors, like you've actually got to be able to catch a wave before you can even practice like standing up,
Yeah.
But no, interesting. I like Turk and surfing. That's why
Yeah.
Bella's always like, fuck. I talk for ages about it. And she's
Yeah.
like, or like my new hobby, whatever
Hopefully
it is.
next time you come up here, there's like some waves on the points because
Yeah.
there hasn't been any for
I know. I've been looking.
weeks.
Well, that was that was the thing is like, I said to Bella, I was like, I'm coming. It's like a family holiday. I bought 2 boards, but I was like, if I don't surf heaps, whatever, like, like it's not a surf trip.
Yeah.
And it's actually worked out probably good for my mind that it hasn't been like pumping every day.
Yeah,
'Cause
because you can forget about it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I did buy a board though when I was here. I was like, I don't know, walked into the store, I was like, fuck, I need to do something.
Yeah.
But even Sunshine Beachy, 2 foot, it's fun as.
Yeah, I surfed like the groin.
Dolphins and shit out there.
Yeah,
Sick.
It's a pretty good spot.
Yeah.
I've been surfing like the groin a couple times, and it's just only been like knee high and really fun. But yeah, it'd be good once the points start working.
Yeah, I'd love to. Like, and coming off, like, did you see that Northern New South Wales swell they had like last week, down at Lennox and that?
Yeah.
I got a mate who lives in Suffolk Park, just near Lennox, and he was sending me videos every day of like, 8 to 10 foot Lennox, and I just say to him, I was like, bro, you stop sending these to me, because we're surfing in fucking down in the peninsula, 1 foot onshore, and it's fucking 5 degrees, like.
Yeah.
But no, that's sick. And I guess last question for me, back to the tattooing is like, yeah, what's like, and you might not have opinions or anything, but where do you see tattooing currently compared to where it's been, and maybe like where do you see it going? And do you like that? Do you like where you see it going?
Yeah, I don't know. I think like it's changed so much. Obviously, like when I started tattooing, like Instagram wasn't really a thing. Like I didn't even have Instagram when I started. So yeah, seeing now, like I don't think I really sort of agree with like how much influence has an impact on like your, I don't know, like just your job.
Yeah.
Like it's I don't like it yeah, I don't know, it's kind of a tricky one, but obviously you really need it, like, and you need to be good at it to sort of succeed. Like like yourself, like, you do it so well. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
No
But
worries.
I do agree with that. It's like, it is that hard one, because it's like, I feel like there's substantially better tattooers than me in like lots of aspects that have substantially less opportunities in their careers just because the socials hasn't worked for them, or they have chosen not to put the effort in, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And whether that's just the reality of how the world is in any industry, like I don't know, but it is that hard one. It's like because for me, it's like my dream would be to throw my phone away and have like a flip phone.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And,
yeah.
you take photos and videos for your family and, whatever, but to have to feel like every tat you do, you've got to get a video of it. You've got to,
it's a show.
You know what I mean? It's like, and part of me loves it. That's why I do it.
Yeah.
But I do sometimes think it's like, I don't know, there just seems, and it never ends. You know what I mean? Like with the socials. But yeah, what do you think, Ben?
I think it's a good thing, like where the industry's gone, obviously, because it hasn't gone backwards.
Yep.
No.
Like I was saying earlier, people are so good at tattooing, and obviously that's due to some of those circumstances. But at the same time, it's a little unfortunate that we're kind of prisoners of those platforms.
Yep.
Like for me, I found Instagram when we first started using it. When was it? Like 2010 or 11 or something like that. It was so like user friendly, and like it was very personal, and then it seems like it's been taken over and monetized, and it just seems like it's just this endless game of catch up, trying to keep up with how you got to do it now.
Yeah.
And it's just a shame for the people that have put the time into the actual profession and not into Instagram.
Yep.
Like I know so many great tattooers that suck at it, and they kind of suffer for it, and they crush. Like, so that stuff's really unfortunate to see. And then you'll go to like some flash day, and there's some like scratcher there that's kind of like this famous guy.
Yep.
And it's just like, I don't know, that's the stuff that hurts for me, is that it's kind of taken a bit of the integrity out of it a little bit. It's almost like if you can be a trendy person or whatever, you can be busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you'll see someone who's actually like given their life to the craft and you know, done it properly and taken all the right steps, and they can't even get a booking.
Yeah.
You kind of have to like sell or like promote like a culture like within your own tattoos, I guess. Like yeah, kind of like what you're doing, or like Hamish Hamilton's doing with all those back pieces.
Yeah.
Like people see that and they're like, oh, I want to buy into that culture. I think that is really cool.
Yeah.
Like I'd wish I was, you know, sort of that sort of Instagram savvy that I could do that. But yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's like when you go and meet a tattooer, you know, before Instagram, you'd meet like a lot of people kind of like they have that impact on clients when they meet them. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, you've met people and you have a great time with them, and then they're just like, oh, they almost come back to you just because they want to hang with you, you know? And I think Instagram gives people that without costing anything.
Yep.
You know, and people kind of buy into that stuff, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
So
yeah, it was like, that was one of the things that I was always told when I started was like, it's like, you know, like probably the same for you guys, but like how many of your customers like have become friends, you know? It's like, and that's, I've got heaps of customers who like almost just want to come to the shop and like borderline, they don't even really want to get tattooed. They're just like, oh, well, I sort of have to, you know, if I'm going to hang out all day.
But how good is that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like and that's the kind of stuff that like I really enjoy about the industry, rather than like you do end up with like some of my best friends are my clients. And I remember like one of my best mates, I was doing his back, and like he was like, we did the last session, and he was like, I'm kind of sad. And I was like, why? And he's like, because I just love coming in and hanging out. And this is when tradition was like pumping, man. Like, and it was a laugh in there a lot of the time, you know. So yeah, like that stuff's really good. Like, yeah, I reckon it's great, that part of the industry. But then, yeah, it just sucks when you do see guys that should be busy and killing it suffer from it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Awesome. All right, well, yeah, I think we just ticked over the hour, so we might call it there. But thank you for everyone who's listened or watched. Thank you, Hamish.
Thank you.
What's your Instagram handle? Plug it.
Hamish Clarke _.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
And
man.
your Insta is?
Just Ben Rorke Tattoo.
Yep. And yeah, we're in the new Tradition Tattoo in Noosaville up in the Sunshine Coast. So if you're ever around the area and you want a great quality tattoo, come down and see the guys. And we'll be back next week with something new. Thank you.
Thank you.